So this video series has really all been about rhythm of speech. Improving your rhythm of speech as a non-native English speaker is really crucial. But why is that? Why am I placing such an emphasis, such an importance on improving, getting more natural your rhythm of speech? Well, it comes down to two things we've discussed in much more detail in previous videos in this series. Number one is clarity. So if you have a more natural rhythm of speech, you'll find yourself asked to repeat yourself much less often. Clarity is the first thing. And the second thing, I've been talking a lot about impact in communication. And the reason for that is, well, if we're talking about rhythm of speech, really what we're talking about is stress. And if we're talking more broadly about stress, what's the whole point in discussing stress? What's stress and emphasis all about? Well, really, it's about taking the ideas in your head and delivering them across to the other person in a way that's effective. So in order to do that, we need to stress some parts of speech which really represent and hold all the meaning, yes, but also all of your emotion perhaps, and all of the message and the attitude you want to get across. A lot of that is carried in the stressed parts of speech. So in order to do this in the context of standard Southern British English and many other English accents more naturally, a good way is to also work on the weaker, less stressed parts. So this video series has been focusing on that particular topic, weak parts of speech, lazy parts of speech. So we want to make parts of speech lazy in order to really stress the stressed parts. So we've got this bigger difference, this wider difference between the unstressed and the stressed parts of speech. And probably the biggest key to unlock this weakening of speech is the schwa vowel sound. And that's the topic of this whole series. And so far in this series, I've been showing you some really common spelling patterns that involve the schwa vowel sound. Spelling patterns in English that contain this schwa vowel sound. And to quickly demonstrate, the schwa vowel sound sounds like this. Yeah, it's super lazy, lips are relaxed, the sound is short, the tongue is just hovering in the middle of the mouth, not doing anything special. It's a very lazy, formless sound by nature, by its physical nature. So in order to master this schwa vowel sound, we need to figure out where on earth the schwa vowel sound is. So this series has been showing you and unearthing some really strong spelling patterns that contain the schwa, because the spellings can be really, really inconsistent. So to quickly rattle through the first few we've done so far in this series, the first was called connect completely. And that simple phrase unlocks all the words in that group. Words like connect, words like completely, with those weak word starters, you could call them, the kun and the kum in those words. Connect completely, yeah? Weak, strong, weak, strong. The next one we looked at was called a useful but immoral label. Again, you can hear the ends of those words have a schwa vowel sound. They're very lazy and weak. So learning that phrase, a useful but immoral label, that one phrase can unlock more words like useful, more words like immoral, and more words like label. Yeah, so you've got this simple phrase to remind you of what could be hundreds of words, at least dozens in most cases. And the one we did last time was called perhaps I forgot. So these are word starters, weak word starters, p and f, and also s, like in survive. So perhaps I forgot to survive. That's the name of that group. Again, there are loads more words like perhaps, forgot, survive that have this ba-ba, ba-ba, low, high, weak, strong pattern. So today's list is another one of these simple phrases to help you uncover all the many, many words that belong in this group. So this one is called I suppose it's a success. Yeah, I suppose it's a success. And I think this phrase could not sound more British. I'm sure you'll agree. We are very good at being simultaneously understated and negative at the same time. So yeah, I suppose it's a success. You know, we got 5 million views and oh, yeah, I suppose it was good. It's like when people ask you, how are you doing? If you're not British, you might say, I'm great, thank you. But if you're British, you might say, yeah, I'm not too bad. That's another common one. Anyway, and then the negative phrase, that might help you to remember it. I suppose it's a success. Now, we're looking at, again, a weak word starter. Usually it's spelt with an S and a U at the beginning. And also you can uncover more patterns like SUB and some more you can see on your screen here, where the beginning of the word is super weak and lazy, and making it thus will help you to stress the other part of the word, the stressed part of the word. Suppose it's a success. Many of my clients won't do this. My non-native English speaking clients I'm talking about here. They might follow the spelling, look at that letter U, and maybe make an sound, because they know there are words in English like cup, for example, that have an in them. They open their jaw and they say, I suppose it's a success. I suppose it's a success. And you can immediately hear my rhythm of speech changes. It becomes much more regular. Ba 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 ba. Yeah, it's like a very regular beat. I suppose it's a success, instead of I suppose it's a success. So many speakers do that. Probably what's more common, and this is probably due to many languages which have, they have the Roman alphabet in them like we do in English, and they have the letter U, which often represents an U sound, and that's really common. I hear non-native clients very often go, I suppose, you see I'm rounding my lips, I suppose it's a success. Again, it changes the rhythm. I suppose it's a success. And you can no longer hear the stress standing out as much. That's the key thing. That's why it affects the rhythm of speech, because it sort of disguises the stress. It calls attention to the wrong part of the word, to the weak part of the word. Suppose it's a success. And that effect is really happening because, well, yes, they might be stressing it incorrectly, but actually, even if they're stressing it correctly, they still will be moving the mouth in a much more fully formed fashion. They might be, like I said, dropping the jaw for suppose, or rounding the lips and saying suppose, instead of keeping the lips neutral and lazy and expressionless and saying suppose, like that. Yeah. So let me give you a sentence with more examples like this. So the sentence goes something like this. I suppose we could suggest something else. I suspect it won't suffice though. I suppose we could suggest something else. I suspect it won't suffice though. So we've got suppose, we've got suggest, we've got, what was it? I suppose I could suggest something else, suspect and suffice. All of those words fit into this group. They belong to the I suppose it's a success set, the memorable schwa set, as I'm calling them. And listen to the rhythm of speech again, right? So you've got, I suppose it's a success. These are the weak syllables and these are the strong syllables. I suspect it won't suffice though, yeah? Suppose, suggest, suspect, suffice. I suppose we could suggest something else. I suspect it won't suffice though. If I didn't do that, let me demonstrate what that would sound like if I didn't use a schwa in those words. I suppose we could suggest something else. I suspect it won't suffice though. Yeah, it changes the rhythm of speech and has an impact on your impact of communication and your clarity. Now, there's not just this, there's something else hidden away here, and I hinted at this in my previous video. There is a stress pattern we can reveal here. Now, it's kind of a separate topic, but in a minute you'll see why this all links together and why it's useful to talk about this new pattern I'm going to show you in a minute. So, if you're struggling, if you're a non-native English speaker and you struggle with knowing if you're stressing the right part of a word, yeah, do I stress the beginning or do I stress the end? When do I stress the beginning? When do I stress the end? This is a great starting point for you because it's a really common pattern. I'm saying pattern, not rule, because there are plenty of exceptions, but it's a really common one. So it's worth noticing, it's worth it's worth to learn in a way. So the pattern involves 2-syllable words. Listen to these words again. So suppose, suggest, suspect, and suffice, though. What do these words have in common? Well, a couple of things, I suppose. One is that they have 2 syllables in them. Yeah? Suppose, suggest, suspect, suffice. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The other thing is they have the same stress pattern, but also they are all verbs. And this is the pattern. So the pattern I'm going to show you is about 2-syllable words, not more because then it gets more complicated, but 2-syllable words that are either verbs or they are nouns and adjectives. Let's start with the verbs because all of these examples are verbs. Suppose, suggest, suspect, suffice, they're all verbs. 2-syllable ones, and that's why they fit into this pattern. They have this low-high stress pattern, and that's it. So when we have a 2-syllable word, which is a verb, really often, not all the time, but really often, they have this low-high. In other words, the second part of the word is stressed, the final syllable. Yeah? The first part is weak, second part is stressed on these verbs. And this carries across to other verbs too, like create and rely. Can you hear that? Yeah? I want to create something. I don't want to rely on anyone else. I don't say create and rely. Okay? I don't say I suppose I could suggest. I don't say that. I say I suppose I could create and suggest. Ba-ba, ba-ba, ba-ba. They've got this feeling of forward momentum to them. So that's the verbs. Now, check out this. If I change suppose to a noun, then that changes to what? Suppose, supposition, I suppose. And now the word is getting longer. Okay. If I change suggest to a noun, then I've got suggestion, 3 syllables. So the word is extending in a way. But how do I change the word to suspect to a noun? How do I do that? What does that sound like? Well, the word itself doesn't change. I don't extend it. I don't change any of the spellings. But I do make a change. I make a change to the stress of that word. So I say, the police are looking for the suspect. Can you hear? I'm now no longer saying, I suspect it won't suffice. Suspect. I'm now saying he's their main suspect. The police are looking for this guy and he is their main suspect in the murder case. Yeah? Suspect. I'm now doing strong weak or high low. I'm now stressing the first syllable. Why? Because it's a noun. Also, it could have been an adjective. And in fact, this word could be an adjective. You hear people using suspect as an adjective too, right? I'm not sure about that. It's a bit suspect to me, right? Meaning a bit suspicious, yeah? It's a bit suspect. And if you're younger, much younger than me, you might even say that's a bit sus. Yeah, that's what the kids say these days, apparently. Yeah, I'm probably too old to actually use that myself and pull it off, but sus. Now I'm stressing that part of the word. It's suspect, or this person, this potential criminal is their main suspect. Very different to the verb to suspect. Now, why is this useful? Well, if you go back to the previous lists we've done, the first list was called Connect Completely. The second list, A Useful but Immoral Label. The third list was called Perhaps I Forgot to Survive. All of these contain words with this pattern. So we're not looking at words of more, again, we're not looking at words with more than 2 syllables. We're only looking at 2-syllable words. Okay, 2-syllable words. That's the stress pattern I'm giving you. So going back to that first list, the word connect. Aha, what kind of word is that? Noun, verb, adjective. To connect, it's a verb, right? So we've got low, high. That fits the pattern. Yeah, low, high, 2-syllable verb. Connect, create, rely, suppose, suggest. Connect. Making that part with a schwa at the start is crucial to get that stress sounding natural. Yeah, connect. Going to the second list, we looked at a useful but immoral label. Well, let's just change the word immoral to moral, right? That's the root word. So we've got useful, moral, and label. Again, we've got high-low, 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 useful adjective, moral. That could be an adjective, could be a noun, I suppose, as well. And label is a noun, right? They all fit the pattern. There are exceptions, but luckily for you, the words so far I've given you, they do fit the pattern. And then last video, I did hint with one particular word about this whole two-syllable word pattern, which was the word perfect versus perfect. That belongs in the third group, perhaps I forgot to survive. So words like perhaps, we have words like perfect, to perfect my English. You might be wondering about the word perhaps, forget it, that's an exception. But we've got perfect, to perfect my English. There's a schwa there, lazy, unstressed, to perfect my English. Versus perfect. And I said last week, wouldn't that be perfect? And you stress it. It's no longer strictly a schwa sound because it's long. It's a long schwa sound. I'm using a lazy mouth shape, per. That's true, but because it's long, it counts as a fully formed vowel sound. It's obviously stressed, right? Perfect. So we change the stress of the word in order to change the meaning of the word. And to circle back to this whole topic of rhythm and the schwa is crucial to this, because the key point I want to show you here, apart from this stress pattern about two-syllable words, is that when the stress changes from high-low to low-high, when the stress changes, the schwa often comes along for the ride. In other words, if I have a word that's high-low, and then if I change it in order to change the meaning to low-high, which would now be a verb, usually, low-high, then very often this newly weakened syllable, right? It was like this, high-low, like perfect, and I change it to perfect, the verb, perfect, the newly weakened syllable carries a schwa vowel sound. So it's not just the stress that changes, which involves rhythm, duration, time, the time aspect and the pitch of the voice. It's not just the pitch changes we're talking about, it's also the mouth shape will become lazier at the same time. When it's weak, that means that I use a weak mouth shape very often. Very often, if we have an unstressed syllable, the vowel sound will become weaker, and usually that will be a schwa. Not always, but usually that will become a schwa sound. Another example would be to take a word like object. Yeah, what's this object in my hand? Noun. But if I change it to object, yes, the pitch of my voice changes, probably the rhythm's changing a bit to stress ject a bit more and to make this part weaker, but also my mouth shape is lazier. Object, I have to object to this, yeah? I don't agree with this. I've got to object to you bringing this object into the room. So when the stress changes, the schwa comes along for the ride. Remember that. And remember, I suppose it's a success. Now, there is actually an article detailing with loads more examples this two-syllable stress pattern on my website. Follow the link in the description for not just more examples, but also I provide some really strong recommendations for you on not just what the pattern is, but how to learn it. Because the problem is, you might learn this pattern and you'll have some great intellectual knowledge of it. You might be able to say it on command and describe exactly what the pattern is. Nonetheless, you might still struggle to put it into your speech. It might not stick. It might not be an embodied, unconscious speaking habit. You might just know it as a bit of information. That's not useful. So yeah, if you want to learn more about that, more about the pattern itself and how to make it stick, check out the article. It's really important. So if you want to learn more of these spelling patterns, then all you need to do is just stay subscribed. Hit the bell notification icon, and all the rest of the series will be here on my personal channel. So make sure you subscribe to check that out. If you'd like to get examples from today's set, I suppose it's a success with words, sentences, exceptions, and audio, head to my website. The link's in the description below. And finally, if you want to just explore more, or if you want some personal help and want to get in touch with me, just go to accent.coach. And I'll see you in the next video.